Hello and welcome to the second tutorial for DXEngine. In this tutorial I will show you how to set up a part of the graphics pipeline as well as camera control and an introduction to the Scene Parser. In the next tutorial I will follow on from this one showing you how to import assets into your project. By the end of this tutorial you should have a bitmap rendered to your screen as well as a camera set up ready for the next tutorial. Firstly, let's load up our project manager. We'll do this by going into our project manager folder and double clicking the executable. We'll then click on our project that we created last time and simply click Start Project. Wait for our project to load up, and then here we are with our code. Before I begin, I'd like to make it apparent that most classes in the engine derive off of a main game object. This object primarily stores translation, rotation and scaling, as well as a few other items which allow most objects in the scene to have a point of view camera if necessary. The inclusion of translation, rotation and scaling accommodates a wide range of uses, including 3D model positions in the scene and first or third person cameras. I'll go a lot further into this in a future tutorial, but for now that is all we need to know to get going. As we want the player or yourself to control the camera in the scene, we'll use the class DXPlayerInput. We'll just open up our Solution Explorer, go into DX Classes and scroll down to where DXPlayerInput is. We'll click on the header file. As you can see at the top, this line here means that DXPlayerInput derives off of the IDXInput component feature. This input component also derives off of our game object, so our input also has our translation, rotation and scaling. We also have our key bindings here. They're protected, so we don't need to do anything with these, as well as other variables for storing key states and mouse states. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to our main file and we'll scroll back up to our program entry point. Here we can see that we have already declared a variable from the default project called main camera. So we'll use this variable down below in our code to create our camera. So what we'll first do is once we've bound our graphics service, we'll go under here and we will add our key bindings. These are basically the key bindings that you will use to move the camera about in the scene. So we'll first declare our variables here. And for this tutorial we'll use the W, A, S and D keys. In this engine the input uses direct input, so we use the direct input declarations to assign our keys. These are preceded by a D, I, K and an underscore, and as you can see here in IntelliSense it brings up all the different keys we can use. For now we'll obviously just use W, S, A and D. The format of our key bindings, as you can probably tell, is up, down, left, right, and this stays the same for our actual input. You can change it if you like, but I'm just going to keep it simple for now. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to set up our main camera. So we're going to use our variable from before, main camera, and create a new object of DXPlayerInput. As you can see now, we have to pass in our instance, our window handle and our default translation and rotation, as well as our key bindings. Most of this we can leave as is, so the first two variables we have already, as you can see above here. We have our window handle and H instance. So all we're going to do is do H instance, comma, window handle, and then we are going to just have initial translation and rotation. So we're just going to create a new vector, just zero off all the values, and then what we'll do just for time is just quickly copy this into here, and then finally we're just going to pass our key bindings in. And there we go, that's our main camera created. The final thing we need to do for our camera is just bind it to our locator. So when we start rendering things, the actual graphics pipeline knows which camera we're using. So we're going to type DX locator. As it's a static method, we don't actually need to create a DX locator object, and then we're going to provide main camera. As you can see here in our IntelliSense, it requires an DXEngine object to actually pass in. This is our main game object, which most things derive off of, so if we really wanted to, we could have a 3D model or a height map or anything like that as our main camera. But obviously we can't control those for now, so we're going to just assign our main camera. And that's it for assigning our main camera. Just need to put a pointer to it in. There we go. Now that we are capable of actually putting some objects on the screen, we need to set up our shaders. If we go into our project folder, go into the data folder, and here we have our shader folder. If we double click on this, go into it, we, as you saw in the previous tutorial, have our height map, main, skybox and UI shaders. For this tutorial, as we want a bitmap rendered to our screen, we're going to use the UI shader. So we go into this folder, and as you can see, we have our pixel shader and we have a vertex shader. We also have other shaders such as the domain shader and the hull shader, but as we don't need these for UI, we just have these two. What we'll do now is we'll jump back to our code, scroll back up to our entry point, and as you can see here, we have our shader variables set up. Basically, we have our vertex shader, pixel shader, hull shader, and our domain shader variables, and we have storage enough for all our shader configurations, which are our height map, skybox, main, rendering, and UI. If we just quickly jump into this by right-clicking on the shader configuration count and clicking Go to Definition, we can see here that our shader configurations are nicely defined. What we'll do now is we'll go back to our main and we'll scroll down to underneath where we've created and bounded our camera, and we will set up our UI shader. All we need to do here is fairly simple, is we need to declare our new vertex shader. Then for this we use our DX locator static to assign our shader configuration normally. It brings up quite a few things like alpha diffuse and all this I'll bring up in the next tutorial, but for now we want our shader UI, so we'll double click that and then we'll create a new vertex shader. All this requires from us is just a string to the file path of our shader. So what we'll do is, as it's a wide string, we need to put an L in front of our string, and then as usual just add our shader in. Just skipped ahead quickly here. Basically all we've done is we've added the paths to our pixel shader and vertex shader, and the other shaders we've just set as null, just so we can see that this shader doesn't use our hull and domain shaders. As we now have everything ready to get a bitmap rendered to the screen, we can have a quick look at the Scene Parser. All the Scene Parser does is basically reads an XML file of our scene and loads in our 3D models, bitmaps, or anything else that we might want to put in our scene. So firstly, what we'll do is we will go back to our data folder, and we have a nice XML file here called scene. So what we'll do is we'll just open that in a text editor, and we can see a few things here. Firstly, we have our assets section, so this is where we load in all our asset packs with the pack tag, and also we can load in 2D textures, so these can be PNGs or bitmaps or anything like that. We use our UI texture tag. So what we do here is we provide an ID, which we call DX logo, we have also the width and the height of the bitmap, and also the file path to our logo. Next, we have our using scene section. This is where we actually construct our scene. Most of this we can ignore for now. The only thing we're interested in at the moment is this last one, which is our DX bitmap. What we'll do, this basically all we need to do is provide an ID to the UI texture we defined before, where we want it on the screen in X and Y coordinates. So now that we've had a quick look at that, we'll jump back into our code for the last time. And what we'll do is we will create our scene. So firstly, we need to create our new asset loader. I'll go into this a lot more in the next tutorial, but for now all we need to do is just create our new object. As long as the loading of the asset loader is okay, we'll provide our asset loading service to the locator, and then what we will do, all we need to do to load in our scene is call another static method in our Scene Parser, DXEngine Parser, :, and then pass scene file. Then all we need to do is pass in the path to our scene file, and that's it. Basically, we will load in all our bitmaps and 3D models and things like that. Finally, what we need to do now is just call our asset loader and bind all our all our meshes together, so we can render them eventually. All we need to do now is build our project. After this is done, we can actually go on and run our sample. Okay, and there we go. As you can see, we've got a bitmap here in the top right hand corner. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, send me an email or post on the Facebook page. To reinforce what you've learned, try changing the key bindings and adding a few more bitmaps to the screen. In the next tutorial, I'll go through the asset tool and show you how to import an asset into your game.